My son got promoted today. The whole family, dressed up and chatting excitedly, were getting ready to go to dinner at a fancy restaurant, except for me. I found out when I overheard them talking about the reservation 4, not 5. A few minutes later, my phone rang. A message appeared from my daughter-in-law, "Don't wait. Leftovers are in the refrigerator. Reheat them yourself and remember not to make a mess." I stared at the screen for a long time, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't reply. But that night, I did something that changed everything forever. Welcome to today's story. Please hit like, subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. A quick note, some elements have been dramatized to enhance the narrative and its educational value. Any resemblance to actual persons or situations is purely coincidental, but the message carries meaningful insight about family dynamics and reclaiming dignity. My son got promoted today. His wife told everyone at her office. My grandchildren wore their Sunday best, the kind of clothes you only pull out for church or special occasions. And me, I found out because I overheard them laughing in the living room about the reservation they'd made at the courthouse 7:30 tonight. A table for 4, not 5, 4. I'm sitting alone in the kitchen now, listening to the hum of their excitement drifting down the hallway. Chris's voice deep and confident the way it always is when he's talking about his career. Jessica's high-pitched laugh, the one she saves for moments when she's genuinely pleased with herself. And the kids, Ethan 11 years old and already too serious for his age, and Lily, 8 still small enough to believe the world is kind. They're getting ready to celebrate. Senior Vice President of Logistics, $145,000 raise. The kind of promotion people dream about, the kind that comes with corner offices and business cards printed on heavy cardstock. I should be happy for him. I want to be happy for him. But no one told me about the party. No one asked if I wanted to come. I found out the way you find out about things when you're invisible by accident, by proximity, by existing in the margins of someone else's life. The kitchen smells like the pot roast I made for dinner earlier, the one they barely touched, before Jessica announced they'd be eating out tonight. The scent of rosemary and garlic still hangs in the air, mixing with the faint metallic tang of the old coffee maker I use every morning at 5. This kitchen has become my entire world over the past 3 years. These counters I scrub every night. This floor I mop on my hands and knees. This table where I fold laundry while everyone else is asleep. 3 years ago, I had a different kitchen, a smaller one, but it was mine. Thomas and I bought that house on Oak Street back in 1987, the year Chris turned 4. It was a modest 2-bedroom, but it had a backyard big enough for a vegetable garden and a front porch where Thomas would sit every evening after his shift at the Salem Police Department, nursing a Coors Light and watching the neighborhood kids ride bikes up and down the street. Then Thomas died. January 14th, 2022, a heart attack in the garage while he was changing the oil in his Chevy Silverado. I found him there crumpled on the cold concrete, his hands still black with grease. Ethan was the one who called 911. I just stood there frozen, staring at the man I'd loved for 43 years, knowing before the paramedics even arrived that he was already gone. The months after Thomas's death are a blur of paperwork and condolence casseroles and sleepless nights. Chris helped me through it, or at least I thought he did. He sorted through Thomas's files, handled the estate paperwork, made sure the bills were paid, while I tried to remember how to breathe. He was the one who suggested I sell the house on Oak Street. "It's too big for you now, Mom," he'd said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, the old kitchen, not this one. "Too many memories. You need a fresh start. And honestly, the market's good right now. You could get a decent price." He wasn't wrong. The real estate agent listed the house at $270,000, and we had 3 offers within a week. We settled on $285,000 cash closing in 30 days. "Here's an idea," Chris said the day after we accepted the offer. "What if we bought a bigger place together? Jessica and I have been talking about upgrading anyway. The kids are getting older. We need more space. You could invest your money from the sale and we'd all live together, like a family." It sounded perfect. I was terrified of living alone, of waking up every morning in an empty house where every corner reminded me of Thomas. And Chris made it sound so logical, so generous. He'd already found a house he liked, a 4-bedroom on Juris Lane in West Salem, big backyard, good schools nearby, $425,000. He said he'd handle the financing if I could cover the down payment. $95,000. That's what I gave him, more than a third of everything I had left. But Mom, said Richard Coleman, the notary I'd worked with when Thomas and I bought the Oak Street house, if you're putting down that much money, you need to make sure your name is on the title deed. Protect yourself. I remember Chris laughing it off. Mom, you don't trust me. It's not about trust. Richard had said, his voice calm but firm. It's about ensuring your investment is legally documented. If Ruth's name is on the deed, she has legal ownership. It's simple protection. So I signed. Ruth Margaret Anderson, sole owner of the property at 2847 Juris Lane Northwest. Chris said it was just a formality that, of course, we were all co-owners in spirit, but Richard insisted. And for once, I listened to someone other than my son. I didn't know then that this piece of paper would be the only thing standing between me and complete destitution. For the first few months, it was good. I had my own room upstairs, a bathroom I shared with the kids, and plenty of space to breathe. I cooked dinners, watched Ethan and Lily after school, helped with homework. I felt useful. I felt needed. But slowly things changed. Jessica started making little comments. Ruth, could you not leave your coffee mug in the sink? Or, Ruth, the kids don't need that much sugar in their cereal. Chris stopped asking how I was doing and started telling me what needed to be done. The laundry, the dishes, the grocery shopping. I became the housekeeper, the nanny, the invisible woman who kept everything running while everyone else lived their lives. And tonight they're celebrating without me. I hear footsteps on the stairs, light, quick, the patter of small feet. Lily bursts into the kitchen, her blonde hair tied up in a ribbon, wearing a blue dress I ironed this morning. Grandma, she says, breathless and smiling, why aren't you getting ready? I paste on a smile, the kind I've gotten good at over the past 3 years. I'm not going, sweetheart. Her face falls. Why not? Before I can answer, Jessica's voice cuts through the air from the top of the stairs. Lily, come on, we're late. Lily hesitates, looking between me and the staircase. I nod toward the door. Go on, baby, have fun. She hugs me quickly, her small arms wrapping around my waist, and then she's gone running back toward the sound of her mother's impatient voice. I hear the front door open, the beep of the car unlocking, Chris's voice. Everyone in seat belts. And then the door slams shut. The engine starts. The car pulls out of the driveway. Silence. I sit back down at the kitchen table, staring at the grain of the wood, the small scratches and stains that tell stories I'll never know. My phone buzzes on the counter, the screen lighting up with a notification. A text message from Jessica. I already know it's not an invitation. I pick up the phone, my hand steadier than I expect, and open the message. And I read the words that will change everything. The house is too quiet. I sit at the kitchen table, hands folded, listening to nothing. They left 15 minutes ago. Chris, Jessica, Ethan, Lily dressed up and laughing as they climbed into the car. I watched from the window as the Honda disappeared down the street. No one said goodbye. My phone vibrates. I pick it up, hoping maybe they've changed their minds. Maybe there's been a mistake with the reservation. Jessica, 7:43 p.m., don't wait up. Leftovers in the fridge, heat them yourself, and Ruth, don't leave a mess this time. I read it twice. Ruth, not Mom. Heat them yourself. I made those leftovers. I woke at 6 this morning to cook pancakes for Ethan and Lily. I cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, prepped tonight's dinner chicken casserole, the one Chris used to beg for every Sunday when he was young. They didn't touch it. They went to the courthouse. Table for 4. And now Jessica's telling me to heat leftovers and not make a mess. I set the phone down. My hands shake. I stand and walk to the counter where the casserole sits under foil untouched. 2 hours of work, 45 minutes in the oven. I even used the expensive Parmesan Jessica likes. They didn't take one bite. I sit back down. The phone glows on the table, Jessica's message still visible. And suddenly I'm thinking about numbers. 3 years ago, I sold the house on Oak Street for $285,000. Thomas and I bought that house in 1987. 35 years of mortgage payments of roses planted every spring of shutters, repainted every 5 years in the same shade of blue Thomas loved. When he died January 14th, 2022, heart attack in the garage, I couldn't stay. Every room held him. His coffee mug, his jacket by the door, the dent in the couch where he used to sit. I sold it. A week later, Chris came to me. "Mom, let's buy a house together, a bigger place. You shouldn't be alone. We want you with us. The kids need their grandmother." I believed him. I gave Chris $95,000 for the down payment. This house, 2847 Jurist Lane, cost $425,000. The mortgage, $330,000, is in my name, Ruth Margaret Anderson. The bank approved it based on my credit, 742, and my income, $1,850 a month from Social Security, $600 from Thomas's pension. Chris promised he'd help with payments. "We're in this together, Mom." He sends $1,350 every month. 36 months now. 1,350 times 36 equals $48,600. But the mortgage is $1,620 a month. I cover the difference. And when things break, roof, furnace, dishwasher, I pay for repairs. $12,000 for the roof last summer. $8,500 for the HVAC in November. $4,200 for kitchen appliances in March. $3,700 for paint and landscaping and a dozen small fixes. $28,400 from the savings Thomas and I built over 30 years. $95,000 plus $48,600 plus $28,400. $172,000. That's what I've put into this house. And tonight, Jessica texted me like I'm the housekeeper. I think about the other work too. The invisible kind. 6 o'clock every morning. Breakfast, lunches, packed homework, checked. Laundry, 4 loads a week. Cleaning, vacuum, mop bathrooms, counters. Dinner every night. Helping Ethan with math. Braiding Lily's hair. Driving to soccer, piano, birthday parties. 6 hours a day minimum. Sometimes 8. 6 hours times 365 days times 3 years. 6,570 hours. If I were paid $20 an hour for a housekeeper and nanny, that's $131,400. I've never asked for a cent. I thought I was family. I thought I was helping. I thought I was wanted. But tonight I got a text calling me Ruth and telling me not to leave a mess. I walked to the kitchen drawer beside the stove, the one where I keep dish towels and oven mitts, the drawer no one else opens. I reach behind the folded towels and pull out a small black USB drive, 23 audio files. I bought the voice recorder 2.5 years ago at Best Buy on Lancaster Drive. $47, small discreet the size of a pack of gum. I keep it in my purse, my pocket, on a shelf where it blends in with the decor. Oregon allows one-party consent recording. I can record conversations in my own home without telling anyone. I learned this in the ER. When a patient crashes, you don't panic. You document. You collect data. You stay calm and build a case. Recording 1, October 15th, 2022. Chris and Jessica discussing how to make me leave. Give it 6 months, she'll go on her own. Recording 4, October 22nd. Chris calling me old and forgetful. Recording 7, December 24th. Jessica saying she didn't want me in the family Christmas photo. Recording 12, June 8th, 2023. Discussion about a life insurance policy. $400,000. Chris as beneficiary. Recording 18, March 15th. Chris saying Ethan is too soft on Ruth. Recording 23, March 19th, Jessica. I hope she leaves soon. I made 3 copies. One in a safe deposit box at U.S. Bank Box 447. One at Barbara's house hidden in a book on her shelf. One here in this drawer. I hold the USB in my palm, so small, so light, yet it holds everything. Thomas used to tell me 30 years with Salem PD. Ruthie, if something feels wrong, document it. Don't trust memory, trust evidence. I didn't understand then. I do now. I put the USB back, close the drawer, and return to the table. Jessica's text still glows on my phone. Heat them yourself. Don't leave a mess. I turn the phone off. I sit in the dark kitchen. The only light comes from the neighbor's porch across the street. $172,000 invested in this house. 6,570 hours of unpaid labor. A mortgage in my name. 23 recordings documenting every lie, every insult, every plan. I think about Thomas, the way he used to hold my hand at this table when we talked about hard things. We'll figure it out together, Ruthie. But Thomas is gone, and I'm alone. I wipe my eyes, and I whisper into the silence. Not yet, Christopher. Not yet, Jessica. When I leave, you'll know exactly what you've lost, and you'll pay for every word. I sit there a long time in the dark, in the quiet, in the house I paid for, but no longer feel welcome in. Outside, a car drives past. A dog barks somewhere down the street. The refrigerator hums. Ordinary sounds. The sounds of a life I thought I was building. But I wasn't building anything. I was being erased. I close my eyes, I take a breath, and I wait. I sit alone in the kitchen long after the house falls silent. The clock on the wall ticks past 10. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the windows, but inside, everything is still. My phone lies face down on the table where I left it. The USB drive sits next to it, small and black and heavier than it should be. I don't move. I just sit, my hands folded in my lap, and let myself remember. 3 years. It's strange how time works. 3 years sounds like a long time when you say it out loud, but when you're living it, when you're inside it, day after day, 5 in the morning until 9 at night, it doesn't feel long at all. It feels endless. It feels like drowning in slow motion. I remember the first morning, February 23rd, 2022, 6 weeks after Thomas died, 3 days after we closed on this house. I woke up at 5 the way I always had, the way 35 years of nursing shifts trained me to. The house was dark and quiet. I made coffee in the kitchen. I didn't yet know the one that still smelled like fresh paint and new appliances. I stood at the counter waiting for the pot to brew, and I thought, this is a fresh start. This is where I'll heal. By 5:30, I had eggs scrambling on the stove. By 6, I'd packed 2 lunches peanut butter and jelly for Lily, turkey, and cheese for Ethan. By 6:15, I'd folded the laundry Jessica had left in the dryer the night before. Chris came downstairs at 6:30, hair still wet from the shower tie slung over his shoulder. He smiled at me. "Morning, Mom. You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," I said, and I meant it. That was February. By March, it wasn't "you didn't have to." It was "thanks for getting that done." By April, it was nothing at all, just an expectation unspoken that the eggs would be ready, the lunches packed, the laundry folded. By May, I stopped expecting thanks. The days blurred together. 5 in the morning every morning. Coffee first, then breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, sometimes oatmeal if Lily asked for it. Pack the lunches. Wipe down the counters. Start the first load of laundry. 7:30, Chris and Jessica leave for work. Ethan and Lily catch the school bus at 7:50. I wave to them from the porch, watch the bus pull away, and then I go back inside. 8 to noon cleaning. Vacuum the living room, mop the kitchen floor, scrub the bathrooms, 2 upstairs, 1 downstairs, wipe the mirrors, change the sheets on Ethan and Lily's beds every Monday, dust the shelves no one else seems to notice. Noon to 2 grocery shopping errands or more laundry. There's always more laundry. 2:45 Ethan and Lily get home from school. I have snacks ready. Apple slices, crackers, cheese sticks. Lily does her homework at the kitchen table while I help Ethan with his math. Jessica doesn't get home until 6. Chris sometimes 7. 5 to 6:30 dinner. I cook every night. Pot roast, spaghetti, chicken, casserole, tacos, meatloaf. Things I can make in bulk, things that reheat well. Jessica says she doesn't have time to cook. Chris says I'm better at it anyway. 7 to 9 dishes, more laundry, picking up toys, getting Lily ready for bed. By the time I collapse into my own bed upstairs, it's past 9:30, sometimes 10. 16 hours a day, every day. No weekends off, no sick days, no paycheck. I tell myself it's not about money. I tell myself I'm contributing, I'm helping, I'm family. But some nights lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I do the math anyway. Housekeepers in Salem charge $25 an hour. Babysitters, $18. Private cooks, $20. 4 hours of cleaning a day. 3 hours of childcare. 2 hours of cooking. $194 a day. I don't say it out loud. I don't write it down. But I know. And I know that $1,350 a month, the amount Chris transfers to me for the mortgage, isn't a salary. It's the minimum payment on a house I already own. A house I put $95,000 into a house that only has my name on the deed because Richard Coleman insisted. Chris never says thank you for the laundry. Jessica never says, this is delicious at dinner. Ethan and Lily hug me goodnight and that's enough. It has to be enough. Because if I stop, if I say no, if I ask for something in return, what then? Where would I go? I think about that first Christmas, December 24th, 2022. I spent all day cooking honey-glazed ham, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole rolls from scratch apple pie. The house smelled like cinnamon and cloves. Lily helped me roll out the pie dough, her small hands dusted with flour, her laughter bright and easy. After dinner, Chris set up the camera by the Christmas tree. "Family photo time," he announced. I started to stand up, smoothing my blouse, but Jessica put a hand on my shoulder. "Ruth, you don't have to. You've been on your feet all day. You must be exhausted." I wasn't, but I sat back down. Chris adjusted the tripod. Jessica arranged Ethan and Lily in front of the tree, their faces lit by the glow of the colored lights. I watched from the kitchen doorway 10 feet away, far enough that the frame wouldn't catch me. Ethan turned his head, looked right at me. "Grandma, why aren't you in the picture?" Jessica's voice smooth and quick. "Grandma's tired, honey. She needs to rest." Ethan frowned but didn't argue. The camera flashed. Chris said, "Perfect." And just like that, it was done. I stood in the doorway holding a dish towel, watching them laugh and pose for 3 more shots, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a strange, hollow understanding that I didn't belong in the frame. I never had. That was the first time I thought maybe I should leave, but I didn't. Because where would I go, and who would take care of Lily and Ethan? Who would pack their lunches, help with their homework? Read them bedtime stories when Jessica was too tired and Chris was too busy. I stayed because I thought they needed me. I stayed because I thought love was supposed to be this hard. I stayed because I didn't know yet that love isn't supposed to feel like disappearing. Now sitting in the kitchen on the night of March 20th, 2025, I opened my laptop, the old Dell I bought in 2012. The one with the cracked screen and the slow processor that no one else ever touches. I navigate to the folder I created 2.5 years ago. I named it Evidence, but at the time, I didn't fully understand why. Inside, 147 receipts, lumber for the deck repair, paint for the upstairs bedrooms, the new roof, the HVAC system, every appliance in this kitchen, 36 months of bank statements showing Chris's transfers, $1,350 every month like clockwork, screenshots of text messages, not just tonight's group chat, others older ones, things I saved without knowing why, 23 audio files, labeled by date, October 15th, 2022, December 24th, 2022, March 10th, 2025, and one scanned document saved as a PDF, the title deed to 2,847 jurist, Lane NW sole owner, Ruth Margaret Anderson. I'd already done the math months ago, sitting at this same table late at night calculating everything in my head the way I used to calculate medication dosages in the ER. $95,000 for the down payment, $48,600 in mortgage payments over 36 months, Chris's contribution of $1,350 a month while I covered the rest, $28,400 in repairs, roof, HVAC, appliances, paint, landscaping, $95,000 plus $48,600 plus $28,400 equals $172,000. Every dollar documented, every receipt saved. Tonight I wasn't calculating. I was remembering. I stare at the screen at the rows of files I've been accumulating for 3 years, and I realize something. I've been building a case, not consciously, not with a plan, but instinctively the way a nurse documents a patient's chart, the way you write things down so you won't forget, so you'll have proof if someone ever questions you. I didn't know I was doing it, but I was. I close the laptop, fold my hands on the table, and whisper into the silence. I've been building a case for 3 years. I just didn't know it yet. But that night, sitting in the dark, staring at the glowing screen of my old laptop, I think about something that happened 5 days earlier, March 15th, a Friday. Chris invited a colleague over for dinner. I didn't know about it until that morning when Jessica came downstairs at 6:30 and said in that clipped, efficient tone she uses when she's giving me instructions, "Chris is bringing someone home tonight. David Harper, senior manager at the company. Dinner at 7. Make it nice. Not, would you mind cooking? Not, is that okay with you? Just make it nice." I made pot roast, mashed potatoes, roasted carrots and green beans, a loaf of rosemary bread from scratch, apple pie for dessert. The kind of meal that takes all day, the kind Chris used to ask for on his birthday when he was a boy. David arrived at 7 on the dot. Mid-40s, clean-cut, expensive suit, the kind of polished confidence that comes from years of corporate success. Chris greeted him at the door, all smiles, handshakes, the loud, easy laugh he saves for people he wants to impress. They sat in the living room for 20 minutes talking business while I set the table. Jessica joined them, her marketing director persona fully activated, bright smile, quick wit, perfectly timed laughter. I stayed in the kitchen listening to the murmur of their voices through the open doorway. At 7:30, I called them to the table. David complimented the food immediately. "This smells incredible, Mrs. Anderson." I smiled. "Thank you. I hope you enjoy it." Chris reached over and put his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close in a gesture so sudden, so uncharacteristic that I almost flinched. "My mom lives with us," he said, his voice warm, his smile wide. "We take great care of her. She's the heart of this home." David nodded, smiling at me. "That's wonderful. You're lucky to have such a devoted son, Mrs. Anderson." I forced my smile wider. "Yes, very lucky." Chris squeezed my shoulder once, then let go. I retreated to the kitchen, my face burning, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of the counter. The heart of this home. I'd heard Chris say a lot of things over the past 3 years, but never that. Dinner lasted an hour. I served cleared plates, refilled water glasses, brought out the pie. David praised everything. Jessica laughed at his jokes. Chris was the perfect host, charming, attentive, warm. And I played my part. The grateful mother. The quiet, unobtrusive presence in the background. David left at 8:45, shaking Chris's hand, thanking me again for the meal. "You're a wonderful cook, Mrs. Anderson. Chris is lucky to have you." I nodded, smiled, closed the door behind him. And then the performance ended. I was in the kitchen rinsing the last of the serving dishes when Chris walked in. Jessica had gone upstairs to put Lily to bed. Ethan was in the living room doing homework. Chris stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his face no longer warm, no longer smiling. "Why are there dishes in the sink?" I looked down. 2 plates, 3 glasses, a serving spoon. I'd washed them. They were sitting in the dish rack drying. "I washed them," I said quietly. "They're drying." "They're in the sink, Mom. It looks messy." "They're clean. I don't care. Put them away." I opened my mouth to explain again, but the look on his face stopped me. The cold, flat look that said, "I don't want to hear it." I turned back to the sink, my hands trembling. Behind me, Ethan's voice small and uncertain. "Dad, she already washed them." Chris's head snapped toward his son. "What did you just say?" Ethan, braver than I expected. "Grandma washed them. She always does. They're just drying." Chris took a step toward him. "Don't talk back to me." "But Dad, Ethan." Chris's voice dropped low and dangerous. "Go to your room, now." Ethan stood there for a moment, his face red, his eyes shining. He looked at me. I gave him a tiny nod. "It's okay. Go." He left without another word. Chris turned back to me, his jaw tight. "You're spoiling him." I didn't answer. I just picked up the dishes and dried them with a towel, my hands moving mechanically, my mind somewhere far away. Chris left the kitchen without another word. I stood there alone, staring at the clean, dry plates in my hands, and I thought, this is who he is now. This is who he's always been underneath. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I went upstairs to check on Ethan and Lily. The house was dark quiet. I paused outside Chris and Jessica's bedroom. The door was cracked open just an inch. I could hear their voices low and tired. "Jessica, you were too hard on him." "Chris, he's getting too soft. He defends her too much." "Jessica, he's 11, Chris. He's just a kid." "Chris, he needs to learn respect, not for her, for us." I stood there in the hallway, barely breathing, my hand slipping into the pocket of my cardigan. My fingers found the small digital recorder I'd been carrying for over 2 years now. I pressed the button. The tiny red light blinked once. Recording number 18. I stayed there for another minute, listening, making sure the device captured every word. Then I turned and walked back to my room as quietly as I'd come. At 10 o'clock, there was a soft knock on my door. "Come in," I whispered. Ethan slipped inside, still in his pajamas, his hair messy, his eyes red. "Grandma," he whispered. "I'm sorry Dad yelled at you." I pulled him into a hug, resting my chin on top of his head. "It's not your fault, sweetheart." He pulled back, looking up at me. "Why do they treat you like this?" I didn't have an answer because I didn't understand it myself. Chris had been a sweet child, a good son, a boy who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard and call them flowers for the prettiest mom in the world. A boy who cried when his pet hamster died, who helped his father fix the fence, who called me every Sunday after he moved out just to check in. When had that boy disappeared? When had he become this? I smoothed Ethan's hair, kissed his forehead. Sometimes people change, honey, and we can't always understand why. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Go to bed, I whispered. It'll be okay. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I sat on the edge of my bed alone in the dark, and I thought, no, it won't be okay. Not unless I do something. But if I'm honest, the warning signs were there even earlier. A month before that dinner with David, before Chris's promotion, before I ever thought about leaving. Valentine's Day, February 14th. I woke up that morning the way I always did, 5 o'clock darkness still pressing against the windows. The house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I made coffee, pulled out the ingredients for pancakes, and decided to do something special. Heart-shaped pancakes. The kind you make with a cookie cutter, the kind kids remember years later. By 7, Ethan and Lily were at the table, still groggy, rubbing sleep from their eyes. I set the plates in front of them, 3 perfect red hearts stacked on each, dusted with powdered sugar. A drizzle of syrup pooled around the edges. Lily's face lit up. Grandma, these are so pretty. Ethan smiled quieter, but I saw the way his shoulders relaxed. Thanks, Grandma. Chris came downstairs, already dressed for work, scrolling through his phone. Jessica followed a few minutes later, her hair pulled back, her expression neutral. She poured herself coffee without a word, leaning against the counter. Lily took a bite of pancake syrup on her chin, and then, without thinking, without any sense of what her words would do, she wrapped her arms around me and said loud enough for everyone to hear, I love you more than Mommy. The room went still. Jessica's hand froze mid-air, the coffee pot hovering over her mug. She set it down hard. The sound of ceramic hitting granite echoed through the kitchen. Chris looked up from his phone. Lily, don't say that. Lily pulled back, confused. But it's true, Grandma makes me pancakes every day. Mommy never does. Jessica's jaw tightened. She set her mug down, grabbed her purse from the counter, and walked out of the kitchen without a word. Chris sighed, standing up. Lily, go brush your teeth. Ethan, you too. The kids left Lily still clutching her fork, looking back at me with wide, uncertain eyes. Chris looked at me, his expression unreadable. You need to be careful, Mom. I know you didn't, but Jessica's upset. Just watch what you say around the kids. He left. I stood there alone in the kitchen, staring at the half-eaten pancakes, and I thought I didn't do anything wrong. But it didn't matter, because Jessica thought I had. That afternoon, I was upstairs folding laundry in the hallway when I heard Jessica's voice through the crack in her bedroom door. She was on the phone. I stopped my hand, still holding a towel, and listened. No, Nicole, you don't understand. I can't stand her anymore. A pause. Jessica's voice dropped, bitter and sharp. She's turning my kids against me. Lily said this morning, right in front of everyone, that she loves Ruth more than she loves me. Do you know how that feels? To hear your own daughter say that. Another pause. I could hear Nicole's voice faintly on the other end, soothing, trying to calm her down. I don't care if she's just a kid. Ruth is doing this on purpose. She's manipulating them. She makes herself the hero, the one who cooks, the one who listens, the one who's always there, and I'm the villain. I'm the one who works 60 hours a week to keep this family afloat, and I'm the villain. I stepped back from the door, my chest tight, my hands trembling. She wasn't wrong, not entirely. I was the one who cooked. I was the one who listened. I was always there. But not to manipulate, not to turn Lily against her mother. I did it because no one else would. I did it because Lily needed someone to pack her lunch, to help her with her spelling words, to sit with her when she cried about a fight with a friend at school. Jessica was too busy. Chris was too busy. And I was convenient. But Jessica didn't see it that way. She saw competition. She saw me as a threat. And that realization that no matter what I did, Jessica would always see me as the enemy settled into my chest like a stone. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Lily knocked softly on my door. "Grandma," she whispered. "Come in, sweetheart." She padded across the room in her pink pajamas, her stuffed bunny tucked under one arm. She climbed onto the bed next to me, curling into my side. "Grandma," she said quietly, Why do you look sad sometimes? I smoothed her hair, my throat tight. Just tired, baby. Are you sad because of what I said this morning? About loving you more than Mommy? I pulled her closer. No, honey, you didn't do anything wrong. She was quiet for a moment, her small fingers tracing the pattern on my quilt. When I grow up, she said softly, I'm going to take care of you, like you take care of me. Something inside me broke. I kissed the top of her head, holding her tightly, and I felt the tears slip down my cheeks, silent and hot. She fell asleep a few minutes later, her breathing soft and even. I stayed awake, holding her, staring at the ceiling in the dark. And I thought, Lily doesn't know she's the only reason I stay. Ethan doesn't know he's the only one who sees me. And Chris doesn't know I'm counting every insult, every lie, every moment he pretends I don't exist. Soon he'll know. Soon they'll all know. To understand how I got here, sitting in this kitchen with 23 recordings and a plan, I'm only now beginning to see I have to go back further. October 2022, the night everything changed. It was late, past 11. I'd been in bed for over an hour, but sleep wouldn't come. I got up, padded down the hallway in my slippers, thinking I'd go downstairs for a glass of water. Maybe read for a while in the kitchen until my mind settled. As I passed Chris and Jessica's bedroom, I heard their voices, low, serious. The door was cracked open just an inch enough that I could see a sliver of lamplight spilling into the dark hallway. I should have kept walking, but I heard my name. Laura can't just keep doing this, Chris. She's been here 8 months. It's not getting better. Jessica's voice, tired, frustrated. I stopped. Chris sighed. I know. We need to make her leave, but we can't kick her out. People will talk. Your co-workers, the neighbors, everyone will think we're terrible. So we don't kick her out. A pause. Then Chris, again quieter. We make her want to leave. I felt my heart lurch in my chest. Jessica, how? Chris, subtle. Little things. Cold shoulder. Exclude her. Make her feel unwelcome. If we're consistent, she'll get the hint. How long do you think that'll take? 6 months, maybe a year. She'll figure it out. I stood there frozen, my hand pressed against the wall for balance. My chest felt hollow. My hands shook. They weren't just tired of me. They weren't just annoyed. They wanted me gone. And they had a plan. I don't remember walking back to my room. I don't remember getting into bed. I just remember lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying their words over and over in my head. Make her want to leave. She'll get the hint. The next morning, I woke up early the way I always did. 5 o'clock, coffee, breakfast, lunches packed. By the time Chris and Jessica came downstairs, I had everything ready, the kitchen spotless, my face calm. Jessica barely looked at me. Thanks, Ruth. Chris grabbed his coffee, scrolled through his phone. See you tonight, Mom. They left. I stood in the kitchen listening to the sound of the car pulling out of the driveway, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg them to love me. I wasn't going to wait for them to change. I was going to protect myself. At 9:30, I drove to Best Buy. The store was bright and loud, full of televisions flickering and salespeople offering help. I walked past all of it straight to the section I'd looked up online that morning, voice recorders. There were dozens of options. Big ones, small ones, expensive ones. I picked the smallest, most discreet model I could find. A little black rectangle no bigger than a USB drive with a tiny red recording light you could barely see in the dark. $47. I paid cash. When I got home, I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes, holding the small box in my lap, and I thought about what I was doing. This wasn't who I was. I didn't spy on people. I didn't record private conversations. I'd spent 35 years as a nurse, helping people, trusting people, believing in honesty and integrity. But honesty hadn't protected me. Trust hadn't saved me. And integrity wasn't going to keep me from being pushed out of my own home by my own son. So I opened the box, read the instructions, and slipped the recorder into the pocket of my cardigan. Over the next 2.5 years, I recorded 23 conversations. Recording number 1, October 2022. The night I first overheard them, I went back to their door the next evening, stood in the hallway and pressed record. Chris was talking about me again. Just give it time. She'll leave on her own. Recording number 4, October 15th, 2022. Chris in the kitchen talking to Jessica while I folded laundry in the next room. She's getting old. Forgetful. We just have to be patient. Recording number 7, December 24th, 2022, Christmas Eve. Jessica in the living room whispering to Chris while I stood in the kitchen doorway. I don't want her in the family photo. Tell her she looks tired. Make an excuse. Recording number 12, June 2023. Late at night. Chris and Jessica in their bedroom door open. I was in the hallway returning from the bathroom. Jessica, the roof needs fixing again. Can we use some of your mom's share from Thomas's insurance to cover it? Chris cutting her off. That money's already gone. Don't bring it up. Not now. I didn't understand that one at the time, but I saved it anyway. Recording number 18, March 15th, 2025. After the dinner with David, Chris and Jessica in their room. Ethan's getting too soft. He defends her too much. He needs to learn respect for us, not her. Recording number 23, March 19th, 2025, the night before Chris's promotion party. Jessica on the phone with Nicole. I just want her gone, Nicole. I hope she moves out soon. I can't take this anymore. I didn't record every day, only when I heard something that mattered, something that proved what they were doing to me wasn't accidental, wasn't in my head. It was deliberate, and I documented every word. By March 2025, I had 23 files saved on my laptop. I bought 3 USB drives, small, identical black, and copied everything onto each one. USB number 1 I gave to Barbara. Keep this safe, I told her. Don't open it unless something happens to me. USB number 2 I put in a safe deposit box at US Bank downtown. Box 447, only I have the key. USB number 3 I keep in my purse. Always, wherever I go. Now sitting in this kitchen on the night of March 20th, I pull that 3rd USB drive out of my bag and hold it in my palm. 23 recordings. 2.5 years of evidence. Proof that I'm not imagining this. Proof that I'm not being too sensitive or too emotional or any of the other things they've made me feel. Proof that they wanted me gone from the very beginning. I whisper into the silence, my voice steady. They think I'm weak. They think I'm foolish. They don't know I spent 35 years in the ER. I know how to document evidence. I know how to build a case, and I know how to survive. I close my hand around the USB drive, feeling its weight. Soon they'll know too. But the recordings weren't the only evidence I found. In May 2024, 7 months before the promotion party, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Chris and Jessica were away for the weekend. A work conference in Portland, something about logistics and supply chain management. They'd left Friday morning, wouldn't be back until Sunday night. I spent Saturday doing what I always did, laundry, groceries, cleaning. By mid-afternoon, I'd finished the downstairs and moved upstairs to their bedroom. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. I was doing what I'd done every week for the past 2 years, changing the sheets, vacuuming the carpet, dusting the furniture. I pulled the fitted sheet off the bed, tossed it into the laundry basket, and wiped down the nightstands with a damp cloth. That's when I saw it. The drawer on Chris's side of the bed was slightly open, just an inch. And inside, I could see the corner of a white envelope, the kind with a business logo printed in the upper left corner. Northwestern Mutual. I stared at it for a long moment. I told myself to close the drawer, to walk away, to mind my own business. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of recording number 12, the one from June 2023, when I'd heard Jessica whisper to Chris late at night, "What about the insurance money if something happens?" And Chris had cut her off. "Don't. Not now." I'd saved that recording even though I didn't understand it at the time. Now standing in their bedroom with that envelope half visible in the drawer, I felt a cold, creeping dread settle over me. I opened the drawer. Inside was a single document folded neatly inside the Northwestern Mutual envelope. I pulled it out, my hands already shaking, and unfolded it. Life insurance policy number NM-8847392, insured Ruth Margaret Anderson, date of birth March 12, 1957. Policy amount $400. 000, beneficiary Christopher David Anderson, issue date, March 15th, 2023, monthly premium $187. I read it 3 times, my vision blurring my chest so tight I could barely breathe. $400,000. My son had taken out a life insurance policy on me, without telling me. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding the document, and tried to make sense of it. Life insurance policies required consent. I knew that. You couldn't just take out a policy on someone without their signature. It was illegal, which meant I closed my eyes trying to remember. March 2023, a year and 2 months ago. What happened in March 2023? And then it came back to me. Chris had given me a stack of papers one evening. I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, and he'd walked in with a folder. "Hey, Mom," he'd said, his tone casual, easy. "I need you to sign a few things. Just some updates for your Medicare. New forms this year." I'd been tired. It was late. I'd spent the whole day cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. I didn't even read the papers. I just took the pen he handed me and signed where he pointed. "Thanks, Mom," he'd said, taking the folder back. "I'll take care of the rest." And I'd thought nothing of it, because I trusted him. Because he was my son. Now sitting in his bedroom with the life insurance policy in my hands, I understood. He'd lied to me. He'd disguised the insurance application as Medicare paperwork. He'd tricked me into signing my own death policy. And he'd made himself the beneficiary. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, and took 3 photos of the document, front and back, clear readable. Then I folded it, carefully slipped it back into the envelope, and placed it exactly where I'd found it. I closed the drawer. I finished cleaning the bedroom, and then I went downstairs, sat at the kitchen table, and called Barbara. "Ruth." Her voice was warm, concerned. "Everything okay?" "Barbara," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Chris bought life insurance on me." A pause. "What?" $400,000. Issued March 2023. I never signed anything, or I thought I was signing Medicare forms. He lied to me. Barbara was quiet for a moment. Then, "Ruth, that's illegal. You can't take out a life insurance policy on someone without their knowledge. That's fraud." "I know. You need to call a lawyer right now, today." "Not yet." "Ruth, I need more proof, Barbara. If I confront him now, he'll deny it. He'll say I agreed to it. He'll twist it. I need to be sure. I need to have everything lined up before I do anything." Another pause. Then softer. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to document it, like I've been documenting everything else." On Monday morning, I drove to U.S. Bank downtown. I asked to access my safe deposit box, Box 447, the one I'd rented 2 years earlier. The bank employee led me to the vault, unlocked the box, and left me alone in the small private room. Inside the box, 3 USB drives each containing copies of my 23 audio recordings, bank statements showing Chris's monthly transfers, receipts for every repair I'd paid for on the house, and the title deed to 2847 Juris Lane Northwest, with my name, and only my name, listed as the owner. I added the photos of the life insurance policy. Then I sat down at the small table in the room and wrote a letter, by hand, 2 pages. "Barbara, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. In this box, you'll find evidence of financial exploitation, verbal abuse and fraud, 23 audio recordings, a life insurance policy taken out without my knowledge, receipts proving I invested over $170,000 in a house my son and his wife are trying to take from me. Contact Allison Brooks, elder abuse attorney, Salem. Her number is 503-555-0147. Give her everything in this box. Please take care of Ethan and Lily. They're good kids. This isn't their fault. Ruth." I sealed the letter in an envelope, wrote Barbara's name on the front, and placed it on top of everything else in the box. Then I locked the box and left. That night, I called Barbara again. "I wrote you a letter," I said. "It's in my safe deposit box at U.S. Bank, Box 447. If anything happens to me, anything at all, I need you to open it." "Ruth." Her voice was tight. "What's going on? You're scaring me." "Insurance," I said quietly, "just in case." "In case of what?" I didn't answer, because I didn't want to say it out loud, because saying it would make it real. in case my son decides $400,000 is worth more than my life. But even with the recordings, even with the insurance policy, I wasn't ready to act. Not yet. Not until March 10th when something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was a Tuesday. Ethan came home from school earlier than usual, 2:30 instead of 3:15. I was in the kitchen folding dish towels when I heard the front door open and close. Quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the living room. Ethan's backpack was on the floor by the stairs, but he wasn't there. I climbed the stairs, listened. From his bedroom, I heard a sound I hadn't heard in years. He was crying. I knocked softly. "Ethan, can I come in?" A pause, then quietly, "Yeah." I opened the door. He was sitting on his bed, his knees pulled up to his chest, his face buried in his arms. His shoulders shook. I sat down beside him, put my hand on his back. "What happened, sweetheart?" He didn't answer at first, just cried, and I let him. I didn't push. I just stayed there rubbing small circles on his back the way I used to when he was little, when a scraped knee or a bad dream was the worst thing in his world. Finally, he lifted his head, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. His face was red blotchy. "Some kids at school," he whispered. They called me weak. They pushed me into the lockers. Everyone laughed. My chest tightened. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." I didn't fight back. I walked away, and they laughed more. I pulled him into a hug. "That doesn't make you weak, Ethan. Walking away takes more strength than fighting." He leaned into me, his head against my shoulder, and I felt him relax just a little. I stood up. "Stay here. I'll be right back." I went downstairs, pulled a Tupperware container from the cabinet, the one I kept hidden in the back, the one I'd filled with chocolate chip cookies that morning. I brought it upstairs, sat back down beside him, and opened the lid. "Here," I said, "I made these for you." He took one, managed a small smile. "Thanks, Grandma." We sat there together, not talking, just eating cookies, and for a few minutes the world felt a little bit smaller, a little bit safer. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Chris. He appeared in the doorway still in his work clothes, his tie loosened. He looked at Ethan, then at me, and his expression hardened. "Ethan," he said, his voice sharp, "go to your room." Ethan looked up, confused. "I'm in my room." "Then stay here, alone." Ethan's face crumpled. "Dad, Grandma's just—" I said, "Go, stop being a baby." I stood up. "Chris, he had a hard day at school. He just needs—" Chris turned to me, his eyes cold. "He needs to toughen up, not sit here crying to his grandmother." Ethan stood up too, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. His voice was small but steady. "Why are you so mean to Grandma?" Chris froze. The room went silent. Ethan's chest was rising and falling fast, his face red. "You're mean to her. All the time, you yell at her, you ignore her. You treat her like she's nothing. Why?" Chris's jaw tightened. He took a step toward Ethan, and for a moment I thought he might yell. But instead, his voice dropped low and dangerous. "Because she's not your concern. I'm your father. You listen to me, not her." Ethan stared at him, his eyes wide, his lips trembling. Then he turned, pushed past Chris, and ran down the hall to his room. The door slammed. Chris looked at me, his face unreadable. "Stay out of his business, Mom." He left. I stood there alone in Ethan's room, my hands shaking, and I thought, he's breaking. My grandson is breaking, and I can't protect him. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in my head. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Ethan was awake too. In his room, sitting on the floor with his back against the door, he opened his old iPad, the one Chris and Jessica had given him 2 years ago and never bothered to monitor. He opened the browser, typed slowly, carefully. What to do if parents abuse Grandma? The search results loaded. He scrolled through them. Websites about elder abuse, signs to watch for, what to do if you suspect it. He clicked on one, read. Signs of elder abuse include isolation from friends and family, verbal humiliation or belittling, financial exploitation, withholding basic needs, threatening behavior. Ethan read the list 3 times, and he realized his parents were doing all of these things. He scrolled further, found a section titled How to Help. If you suspect elder abuse, document everything. Keep records, take photos, Record conversations if possible. Contact an attorney or adult protective services. Ethan sat there for a long time staring at the screen. Then he opened the voice memos app on his iPad. He didn't know his grandmother had been doing the same thing for over 2 years. He just knew he had to do something. The next day, I noticed Ethan was quieter than usual. At breakfast, he barely spoke. After school, he went straight to his room. That night, I knocked on his door. "Ethan, can I come in?" "Yeah." He was sitting at his desk, his iPad face down. He looked up at me, his eyes tired. I sat on the edge of his bed. "You okay, sweetheart?" He nodded, but I didn't believe him. "Ethan," I said gently, "I know things are hard right now, but I want you to know whatever happens, I'm here." "Okay." He looked at me for a long moment, then quietly, "Grandma, promise me you won't leave." I blinked. "Leave? Why would I leave?" "I don't know. His voice cracked. "I need you here." I crossed the room, knelt beside his chair, and took his hands in mine. "I'm not going anywhere, honey, I promise." He nodded, but I saw the worry in his eyes. And I wondered what he knew that I didn't. But Ethan wasn't the only one who saw what was happening. I'd seen it too. Long before March. Long before the recordings and the insurance policy and the folder full of evidence. Back in June 2023, I discovered something that should have made me leave immediately. But I didn't. Because I was still hoping foolishly that I was wrong. Chris had given me blood pressure medication, lisinopril 20 milligrams. He said Dr. Harmon prescribed it. He told me she'd called him because she couldn't reach me, that my last checkup showed borderline hypertension. But I'd been a nurse for 35 years. I knew my own body. I knew my own numbers. My blood pressure had always been textbook normal 110/70, perfect for a 66-year-old woman. I didn't take the pills. I pretended to. Put one in my mouth every morning, nodded at Chris, swallowed water. Then I'd walk into the bathroom, lock the door, and spit the pill into a tissue. Flush it down the toilet. The following Monday, I called Salem Health and made an appointment with Dr. Linda Harmon. When I showed her the blister pack, she frowned. "Lisinopril, no, I didn't prescribe this. Where did you get it?" "My son gave it to me. He said you called him." "I didn't. I haven't spoken to your son in over a year." She opened my chart, scanned the last few pages. "Ruth, your last blood pressure reading was June 1st, 108/70. That's perfect. I wouldn't prescribe a blood pressure medication for someone with numbers like that." My chest tightened. "He said you called him." "Ruth, if you had taken this medication, 20 milligrams of lisinopril with your normal blood pressure, you could have suffered severe hypotension, dizziness, falls. In extreme cases, stroke or cardiac arrest." The room tilted. "This is dangerous," she said quietly. I couldn't speak. I just sat there staring at the blister pack in her hands, and I thought, he tried to kill me. My son tried to kill me. Dr. Harmon wrote a detailed report. Documented everything: my normal blood pressure, the fact that I'd never been prescribed lisinopril, the potential harm it could have caused. She filed it in my medical record and gave me a printed copy. "Ruth," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "who gave you these pills?" I hesitated, then quietly, "My son." She was silent for a moment. "Do you feel safe at home?" I didn't answer. "Ruth, if someone is trying to harm you—" "I'm fine," I said quickly. Too quickly. I wanted to make sure, before I took them. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She just handed me the report and said, "Keep this, and if you need help, call me anytime." That night, I took the blister pack, placed it in a small Ziploc bag, and wrote on the label in black marker, "Evidence, June 2023. I hid it in the back of my closet in an old shoebox beneath a stack of sweaters. Then I called Barbara. "Ruth." Her voice was warm, concerned. "Everything okay?" I took a breath. My voice was shaking. "He tried to kill me, Barbara." A long pause. "What?" "Chris. He gave me blood pressure medication. I don't have high blood pressure. My doctor confirmed it. If I'd taken those pills, I could have—" My voice broke. "I could have had a stroke." "Ruth." Her voice was sharp now. "We're going to a lawyer, right now, today." "Not yet." "Ruth, I need to know why, Barbara. I need to understand why my son would do this. There has to be a reason. Insurance money, maybe. I don't know, but I can't go to the police until I have proof. Real proof, Because if I accuse him now, he'll deny it. He'll say I misunderstood, and I'll lose. Barbara was quiet for a long time. Then softly, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to keep pretending. Keep taking the pills or pretending to, and I'm going to find out why." For the next 11 months, I kept the blister pack hidden. I kept pretending to take the pills every morning. Chris never asked if they were working, never checked the pack to see how many were left. He just assumed I was taking them, and I let him believe it, because I needed time. Time to understand what I was dealing with. Time to build a case strong enough that no one, not Chris, not Jessica, not anyone could deny what they'd done. And in May 2024, 11 months later, I found the answer. The insurance policy, $400,000. That's what my life was worth to him. The first crack in Chris's carefully constructed facade came 16 months earlier, on a gray November afternoon in 2023. I had been tidying Chris's home office, a cramped room on the second floor that smelled of leather and burnt coffee. He'd left for work an hour ago, and Jessica had taken the kids to soccer practice. The house was quiet except for the hum of the furnace and the occasional creak of old floorboards. I gathered scattered papers, straightened the desk calendar, and reached for a coffee mug ringed with yesterday's stains. That's when I noticed the laptop. It sat open on the desk screen, glowing. Chris never left it unlocked. He was meticulous about privacy passwords on everything, phone always face down, office door locked when he worked from home. But today he'd been rushing. Jessica had called up the stairs about Ethan forgetting his cleats, and Chris had bolted downstairs, leaving everything behind. I didn't mean to look. I'd started to close the laptop when the email header caught my eye. From vanessa.carter.pdx@gmail.com. Subject Dylan's soccer schedule, plus shopping list. The first line stopped me cold. "Honey, Dylan misses you so much. He keeps asking when Daddy's coming back. Last night, Zoe cried because she wanted you to read her bedtime story." My hand froze on the edge of the laptop. "Daddy..." I read it again, then again. My pulse hammered in my ears. I glanced at the doorway, still empty, still silent. Downstairs, the garage door had closed minutes ago. Jessica wouldn't be back for at least an hour. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and snapped a photo of the screen. Then I scrolled down. The email thread was long dozens of messages stretching back months. I scrolled faster, my breath coming short. September 2023. Thanks for this month's transfer, $3,200 received. I used $1,100 for rent, $800 for groceries, and the rest for Dylan's braces. His orthodontist says he'll need another $2,400 by January. August 2023. Zoe starts preschool next week, $680 per month. I know it's expensive, but the daycare near the clinic has a great curriculum. July 2023. Power bill was $340 this month. Portland summers are brutal. Can you bring that box fan when you visit? My vision blurred. I blinked hard and kept scrolling, kept photographing. 47 emails, 16 months of messages. Rent, groceries, utilities, dental bills, preschool tuition. Every email signed the same way. Love you, V. My hands trembled so badly I almost dropped the phone. I forced myself to slow down, to breathe, to think like I used to in the ER when a patient was coding, and everything depended on staying calm. I opened a new tab on the laptop and typed into the search bar, Vanessa Carter, Portland Dentist. The Facebook profile appeared instantly. Vanessa Carter, Dental Hygienist. Portland, Oregon. The profile picture made my stomach lurch. A woman with dark hair and a wide smile stood on a beach arms around two children, a boy about 7, a girl maybe 4. Behind them, slightly out of focus but unmistakable, stood Chris. His hand rested on Vanessa's shoulder. The boy had Chris's nose. The girl had his eyes. I zoomed in, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I scrolled through the public photos. There weren't many. Vanessa's privacy settings were tight, but there were enough. June 2023. The 4 of them at a birthday party. Dylan turns 7, written in frosting on a superhero cake. April 2023. Chris pushing Zoe on a swing at a playground I didn't recognize. December 2022. A Christmas photo. Chris wore a Santa hat. The kids sat on his lap. I took screenshots of everything. My hands moved on autopilot now the way they used to during a trauma, efficient, methodical, no room for emotion until the crisis was over. I navigated back to the email, scrolled to the oldest message I could find. August 2022. I can't believe you're doing this. $3,200 a month every month. I know it's a lot, but the kids need stability. Thank you for being there for us. August 2022. 4 months after I had moved into this house. 4 months after Thomas had died. 4 months after Chris had become the executor of his father's estate. I closed the laptop carefully and sat down in Chris's desk chair. My mind raced, adding and subtracting the way I used to calculate medication dosages in the ER. 2,000 times 16 equals $51,200, at least. Where had that money come from? Chris made good money. He'd been promoted twice in the past 3 years, but he'd told Jessica they were stretched thin. He'd told me he could only afford $1,350 a month toward the mortgage. He'd told me they couldn't afford to fix the leaking roof until next spring, and yet he'd sent at least $51,000 to Portland. My gaze drifted to the window. Outside, the maple tree in the backyard had lost most of its leaves. The branches were bare and black against the gray sky. I thought about January 2022, about the lawyer's office, the stacks of paperwork, Chris's hand on my shoulder as he explained the estate. Dad had $120,000 in life insurance and $78,000 in his pension fund. That's $198,000 total. But after taxes, probate fees, and the funeral expenses, there's only about $48,000 left for you, Mom. I'm sorry, I wish it were more. I'd believed him. I'd signed everything he put in front of me. I'd been drowning in grief, and Chris had seemed so competent, so caring. Only $48,000 left. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cold glass. The math was simple, brutal. Thomas had left $198,000. I had received $48,000. That left $150,000 unaccounted for, and Chris had sent at least $51,200 to Portland. But the emails only went back 16 months from today. Who knew how much more he'd sent before that, or since? My breath fogged the window. Outside, a crow landed on the maple branch and cawed once harsh and loud. I thought about the life insurance policy I'd found in Chris's drawer. $400,000 with Chris as the beneficiary. I thought about the medication he'd given me in June, the pills that could have caused a stroke. I thought about the woman in Portland, the children who called him Daddy. And I thought about Thomas, who'd worked 30 years as a police officer and had wanted his wife taken care of. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my messages. I typed quickly, "Barbara, I need to see you. Tonight. It's important." The reply came within seconds. "My place, 7 p.m. I'll make coffee." I slipped the phone back into my pocket and took one last look at the laptop on the desk. Then I turned and walked out of the office, closing the door softly behind me. Barbara was waiting. Barbara's kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee. It was 7:15 on a November evening in 2023, and I sat at the small table by the window, my phone face up between us. Barbara, my friend for 23 years, a retired librarian with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, leaned forward and squinted at the screen. Jesus, Ruth. I scrolled slowly through the screenshots. 47 emails, each one a small explosion. Barbara read in silence, her jaw tightening. When I reached the Facebook photos, Barbara sat back and pressed a hand to her mouth. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 16 months, I said. My voice was flat, steady. "Maybe longer." Barbara picked up her coffee mug, then set it down without drinking. "What are you going to do?" I looked out the window. The street was dark except for the glow of porch lights. A neighbor's cat crossed the lawn, slow and deliberate. "I need proof," I said. "Real proof, not just emails and photos. I need to know what he's been doing." I mean, I need to hire someone." Barbara blinked. "A private investigator." "Yes." "Ruth, that's expensive." "I don't care." Barbara hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I know someone. His name's Roy Mitchell. He used to work with Thomas back in the day, retired from Salem PD about 5 years ago. He does investigations now. Divorce cases, mostly. He's good, discreet." I met her eyes. "Can you call him tonight?" "Tomorrow morning." Barbara studied me for a long moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll call him." Roy Mitchell's office was a cramped second-floor walk-up above a tax prep service on Commercial Street. The walls were beige, the desk cluttered with file folders and a coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Detective." Roy himself was in his early 60s, broad-shouldered and graying with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. I sat across from him on a battered leather chair and laid out the situation. The emails, the money, the family in Portland. Roy listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and leaned back. "You want surveillance?" he said. "Yes." "Photos, video timeline of his movements?" "Yes." "This isn't going to be cheap. I charge $85 an hour plus mileage and expenses. A weekend in Portland hotel gas meals, you're looking at $1,500, maybe $2,000. I opened my purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside was $1,800 in cash, 2 months of careful saving from my pension. Roy raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. He took the envelope and counted it quickly, then locked it in a desk drawer. "All right," he said. "When does he usually go?" "First weekend of every month." Roy checked his calendar. "That's this weekend, February 3rd and 4th. Can you do it?" "Yeah." He stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm, confident. "I'll have a report for you by the 20th. The report arrived on February 20th, 2024 in a manila envelope marked Confidential. I opened it alone at Barbara's kitchen table. Barbara hovered nearby, refilling coffee mugs, not asking questions. Inside were 73 photographs and a flash drive containing 4 videos. I spread the photos across the table like a deck of cards. Photo 1, Chris's car, a silver Honda Accord parked in front of a 2-story house painted pale blue. Address visible on the mailbox 4721 NE Alameda Street. Photo 2. Chris standing on the front porch, arms around a woman with dark hair pulled into a ponytail. She wore scrubs. They were kissing. Photo 3. 2 children running out the front door, a boy in a Timbers jersey, a girl in light-up sneakers. Both threw their arms around Chris's legs. Photo 4. Chris lifting the girl into the air, her face tilted back in laughter. My hands didn't shake. I looked at each photo carefully, methodically, the way I used to review patient charts in the ER. Photo 12. The 4 of them at a Café Petite Provence, the sign said. Pastries on the table. Chris cutting a croissant for the little girl, the boy leaning against his shoulder. Photo 29, Chris and the boy kicking a soccer ball in a park. Trees in the background, a dog chasing a frisbee. The boy grinning up at Chris with pure, uncomplicated joy. Photo 51. Chris kissing the woman again, this time in the park. His hand on the back of her neck, the children playing on the swings behind them. I set down the last photo and picked up the flash drive. The videos were short, 30 seconds each. In the first one, Chris crouched on the front lawn, arms open, and the little girl ran into them. He spun her in a circle. Her laughter was bright and high. In the second, Chris and the boy sat on a park bench eating ice cream. The boy said something, and Chris threw his head back and laughed a real laugh, loud and unguarded. I watched it twice. I hadn't heard Chris laugh like that in 3 years. I closed the laptop and sat very still. Barbara set a fresh mug of coffee in front of me. "Ruth." I didn't answer right away. I stared at the photos scattered across the table, images of a man I thought I knew, living a life I'd never imagined. "I need to know how deep this goes," I said finally. Barbara sat down across from me. "What do you mean?" "He's been sending Vanessa $3,200 a month. The emails I found go back 16 months, that's over $51,000. But he might have been sending money even longer." My voice was calm, clinical. "Where did it come from?" "His salary, Thomas's estate." "Ruth, I'm hiring a forensic accountant." Barbara blinked. "A what?" "A forensic accountant. Someone who audits financial records, traces money. I want to know exactly where every dollar of Thomas's estate went." I looked up, my eyes hard. Chris was the executor. He told me the estate was worth $48,000 after taxes and fees. But Thomas had nearly $200,000 in insurance and pension. I want to know where the rest went. "That's going to cost—" "I don't care." Barbara hesitated. "Ruth, if Chris finds out you're investigating him—" "He won't," My voice was steady. Not until I'm ready. Barbara studied me, then nodded slowly. Okay, I'll help you find someone. I gathered the photos back into the envelope. My hands were steady. My face was calm. But when I spoke again, my voice was cold. Chris has been stealing from me. He tried to poison me. He's been lying to everyone, his wife, his children, me, for years. I zipped the envelope shut. I'm done being the victim. I'm taking control. Barbara reached across the table and gripped my hand. Good, she said quietly. It's about damn time. I sat alone in the kitchen at 9:45, the house silent around me. They'd been gone for more than 2 hours. Chris, Jessica, and Lily laughing and dressed up heading to the courthouse to celebrate Chris's promotion. I'd watched them leave, watched the car disappear down the street, watched the taillights fade into the March night. She'd received Jessica's text at 7:43. Heat them yourself. Don't leave a mess. She'd sat here since then thinking about numbers. $172,000, 6,570 hours, 23 recordings. The front door opened. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, hesitant. Ethan appeared in the doorway. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed. He still wore his jacket. Ethan, Ruth stood. What are you doing back? I thought you went with... I left. His voice was flat. I told them I felt sick. Ruth crossed to him, touched his forehead. Are you okay? He pulled back. Grandma. His voice cracked. I need to show you something. I should have shown you weeks ago, but I didn't know how. He pulled his iPad from his backpack and set it on the kitchen table. His hands were shaking. Ruth sat down slowly. Ethan, what is it? I found this a few weeks ago, on Mom's phone. He tapped the screen and turned it toward her. I didn't know if I should tell you. But after tonight, after watching them leave you behind like that, I can't keep quiet anymore. Ruth looked at the screen. The Messages app was open, a group chat. The name at the top made her breath catch. Family, no grandma. Ruth stared at the words. Her hands went cold. They made a group chat, Ethan whispered. Without you, to talk about you. Ruth's throat tightened. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. Ethan scrolled to early March. These are from the past few weeks. Ruth began to read. March 5th, 2025, 8:14 p.m. Jessica. She asked where we're going this weekend. I told her we're visiting my mom. Chris good. Keep it vague. March 12th, 2025, 10:02 p.m. Chris. She's getting too curious. We need to be more careful. Jessica. Maybe we should just tell her to move out. Chris, not yet. Give it another few months. She'll leave on her own. March 15th, 2025, 6:47 p.m. Jessica, your promotion dinner reservation for 4, right, not 5. Chris, correct. Just us and the kids. Jessica, perfect. She'll get the hint. March 19th, 2025, 11:23 p.m. Jessica. I hope she leaves soon. I'm tired of pretending. Chris, soon. Trust me. March 20th, 2025, 5:32 p.m. Jessica, reservation confirmed. 7:30. Table for 4. Chris, good. Let's see if she finally understands. Ruth's vision blurred. She scrolled back up, read the messages again. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't crumble. But something inside her, something that had been holding on, hoping, believing that maybe she'd misunderstood, finally broke. Ethan stood beside her, arms wrapped around himself. I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have told you sooner. I kept hoping they'd stop, that they'd be nice to you. But they didn't. Ruth set the iPad down carefully. She looked at Ethan, this boy who'd tried to protect her, who'd carried this terrible knowledge alone. She reached for his hand. Thank you, she said quietly, for showing me. What are you going to do? Ruth stood. Her voice was steady. I'm going to leave. Ethan's eyes widened. Leave? Yes. But where will you go? Barbara's house. I'll be safe there. Grandma, Ruth cupped his face in her hands. Ethan, listen to me. You are a good boy, a brave boy. You tried to protect me, and that took courage. Her voice softened. None of this is your fault. Do you understand? His eyes filled with tears. He nodded. Ruth pulled him into a hug. He clung to her, his shoulders shaking. I'll be okay, she whispered. You take care of yourself. And remember, you did the right thing. When he finally pulled back, she wiped his tears with her thumb. Go upstairs, she said gently. Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Ethan nodded. He picked up his iPad and left the kitchen without another word. Ruth stood alone in the silence. Then she went to her bedroom. She pulled 2 large suitcases from the closet and laid them open on the bed. Her movements were methodical, efficient. 35 years in the ER had taught her how to stay calm in a crisis. Clothes first, shirts, pants, sweaters, undergarments, enough for 2 weeks. Then documents. The title deed to 2847 Juris Lane Northwest, her name Ruth Margaret Anderson in bold. Bank statements, 36 months of mortgage payments, $48,600 from Chris. Receipts, roof repair, HVAC replacement kitchen appliances, $28,400. 3 USB drives, one with 23 audio recordings, one with 47 email screenshots from Vanessa Carter, one with 73 photos and 4 videos from Roy Mitchell's surveillance. The pill bottle, lisinopril 20 milligrams. The pills Chris had given her, the ones that could have killed her. The insurance policy, $400,000. Beneficiary Christopher David Anderson. She packed it all. At the bottom of the second suitcase, wrapped in tissue paper, was a photograph. Ruth sat on the edge of the bed and unwrapped it slowly. The photo was from 1980, 45 years ago. She wore a white dress with lace sleeves. Thomas stood beside her in a gray suit, his arm around her waist. They were both smiling, young and hopeful, and certain the future would be kind. Ruth's throat tightened. "Thomas," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I failed. I couldn't make him into the man you wanted him to be." A tear slipped down her cheek. "But I won't let him destroy me." She wrapped the photo carefully and tucked it into the suitcase. Then she zipped both bags shut. Ruth returned to the kitchen and pulled a sheet of paper and a pen from the drawer. She sat at the table and wrote, "Chris and Jessica, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I am not leaving because I am weak. I am leaving because I am strong enough to walk away. For 3 years, I gave you everything. I gave you a home. This house stands in my name. I gave you labor, 6,570 hours of cooking, cleaning, and caring for your children without a single word of thanks. I gave you $172,000 of my own money, $95,000 down payment, $48,600 in mortgage payments, and $28,400 in repairs. In return, you gave me insults, exclusion, and poison. I've documented everything. I have 23 audio recordings of your conversations. I have photographs of your second family in Portland. I have bank records showing the $150,000 you stole from your father's estate. I have the medication you tried to use to kill me. This house is mine. The mortgage is in my name. Every dollar I invested, every hour I worked, every word you said, I have proof. You will hear from my attorney, Ruth Margaret Anderson." She placed the letter in the center of the table, weighted down with the salt shaker. Then she went to the front door. It was 12:10 in the morning. She opened her phone and requested an Uber. The app showed a driver 3 minutes away. Ruth carried both suitcases to the front porch and set them down. The night air was cold and sharp. Above the stars were bright and distant. She turned and looked back at the house. The porch light glowed yellow. The windows were dark. Upstairs, Ethan was probably still awake, staring at the ceiling. Ruth thought about the first day she'd walked through that door. January 2022. Thomas had been gone 2 weeks. Chris had helped her carry boxes from the car, his hand on her shoulder, his voice gentle. "Welcome home, Mom." She'd believed him. The Uber pulled up a silver Toyota Camry. The driver, a woman in her 40s, got out and helped Ruth load the suitcases into the trunk. "Where did," the driver asked. 1217 Cottage Street, Ruth said. "Barbara's house." Ruth climbed into the back seat. The driver started the engine. As the car pulled away from the curb, Ruth looked out the rear window. The house grew smaller. The porch light flickered once, then held steady. "Goodbye, Christopher," Ruth whispered. "I hope someday you understand what you've lost." The car turned the corner and the house disappeared. I wake up in Barbara's guest room to sunlight streaming through lace curtains. For a moment, I don't know where I am. Then I remember. I left. I'm safe. It's the first peaceful sleep I've had in 3 years. I check the clock on the nightstand. 8:27 in the morning. My phone is on the dresser screen, dark. I pick it up and turn it on. The screen floods with notifications. 14 missed calls from Chris, 8 missed calls from Jessica, 3 voicemails, 7 text messages. I don't open any of them. I don't need to. I know what they say. I open my settings and block both numbers. Chris first, then Jessica. The screen goes quiet. I get dressed jeans and a sweater from my suitcase and go downstairs. Barbara is in the kitchen pouring coffee. She looks up when I walk in. "Morning, Ruth. How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." She hands me a mug. "I heard your phone buzzing earlier. Chris, 14 calls. Jessica, 8. Barbara raises an eyebrow. "They found the letter." "They did." "What are you going to do?" I sit down at her kitchen table and wrap my hands around the warm mug. "Nothing." "Not yet." Barbara sits across from me. "You blocked them." "Both of them." She nods. "Good." We sit in silence for a few minutes. The coffee is strong and bitter the way I like it. Outside, a bird is singing. The house smells like cinnamon and old wood. It's quiet, peaceful. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick it up. "Hello, Grandma." Ethan's voice, quiet, shaking. "It's me." "Ethan." I sit up straight. "Are you okay?" I'm fine. I'm in the bathroom. They don't know I'm calling you." "What happened?" He takes a breath. "Dad found your letter this morning, around 7. I close my eyes. "Tell me." Ethan's voice is low, rushed, like he's afraid someone will hear him. "I woke up around 6:30. I heard Dad's alarm go off downstairs. He always gets up early on Fridays. I stayed in bed for a while, and then I heard him yell." "Yell?" "Yeah, like not angry, scared. He yelled for Mom. I got up and went to the top of the stairs. I could see into the kitchen from there. I picture it. The staircase. The view into the kitchen. Ethan standing there in his pajamas, watching. Dad was holding a piece of paper. His face was Grandma. I've never seen him look like that. It was like all the color drained out of him. What did he do? He kept reading. His hands were shaking. Then he yelled for Mom again, louder this time. She came running downstairs in her bathrobe and he handed her the letter. I can see it. Jessica standing there in her bathrobe hair, a mess, reaching for the paper. Her eyes scanning the words. Mom read it. Ethan continues. And she froze. She looked at Dad and said, "She's gone." And Dad nodded. Then Mom said, She recorded us." I take a sip of coffee. My hand is steady. "What did your father say?" "He didn't answer. He just turned around and ran upstairs. I heard him go into your room. I heard him open the closet. Then I heard him say a bad word. He saw the closet was empty. Yeah, everything was gone. Your clothes, your stuff, everything. He came back downstairs and his face was Grandma. He looked terrified." "Good," I say quietly. Ethan pauses. "Grandma, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Go on. Dad tried to call you over and over, but it kept going to voicemail. He tried maybe 10 times. Then he threw his phone on the counter and said, 'She blocked me.' I picture Chris standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, realizing I'm not coming back, that I'm not answering, that I'm done. Mom picked up the letter again," Ethan says. She was reading it and her hands were shaking so bad the paper was rattling. She looked at Dad and said, "What if she really has recordings? What if she really has all this?" "What did he say?" He said, "She does. She has everything." Then he sat down at the table and put his head in his hands. I close my eyes. I can see it so clearly. Chris sitting at the kitchen table where I used to make breakfast every morning, head in his hands, finally understanding. Mom started crying, Ethan says. She said, "How long has she been planning this?" And Dad said, "I don't know, months maybe years." "Good," I whisper again. Then they started fighting. Fighting. "Yeah." Mom said, "This is your fault. You should have been nicer to her." And Dad said, "My fault, you're the one who sent her that text last night." And then they just kept yelling at each other. Blaming each other. I picture them. Chris and Jessica standing in the kitchen, shouting, pointing fingers, everything falling apart. "I went back to my room," Ethan says. "I didn't want to hear it anymore. I've been hiding in here since then. I don't think they even noticed I'm still home. They're too busy panicking." "Ethan," I say gently, "are you safe?" Yeah, I'm okay. They're not mad at me. They don't even know I helped you. Keep it that way, I say. Don't tell them you showed me the chat, not yet. I won't. And if things get bad, if they start fighting too much, or if you feel scared, you call me, or you call Barbara. We'll come get you. Okay. Okay. I mean it, Ethan. I know, Grandma, I will. There's a pause. I hear a door slam in the background, muffled voices. I have to go, Ethan whispers. I think they're coming upstairs. Okay, I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Grandma. The line goes dead. I set the phone down on the table. Barbara is watching me, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. That was Ethan, I say. I gathered. What happened? I tell her. Everything. Chris finding the letter at 7. Jessica's face when she read it. The empty closet. The blocked calls. The fight. When I finish, Barbara leans back in her chair and lets out a low whistle. They're panicking. They are. Good. I smile. That's what I said. Barbara takes a sip of her coffee. So what now? I look out the window. The morning sun is bright, the sky clear. Across the street, a neighbor is mowing his lawn. A car drives past. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary life. Now, I say we wait. Wait for what? For them to realize I'm not bluffing, that I have everything I said I have, that I'm not coming back. And then, I turn back to Barbara. And then tomorrow we go see Richard Coleman. The attorney, yes, Thomas used to work with him back in the day. He's good. He'll know what to do. Barbara nods slowly. You're really doing this. I am. Good, she says again. She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. It's about damn time. I squeeze back. Thank you, Barbara, for everything, for letting me stay here, for believing me. Ruth, you're my best friend. You think I'm going to let you go back to that house after everything they've done? Not a chance. We sit there for a moment, hands clasped across the table, two old women who've known each other for more than 20 years. Then I let go and pick up my coffee mug. He's panicking, I say quietly. Chris, yes, Ethan said he looked terrified. Good. I take a sip. The coffee is still hot, still bitter. He should be terrified, I say, because tomorrow we're going to make it official. Tomorrow he's going to learn that I'm not his weak, helpless mother anymore. Barbara smiles. You never were. No, I say. I never was. It just took me 3 years to remember. I set the mug down and look out the window again. Somewhere across town, Chris and Jessica are panicking, fighting, trying to figure out what to do. But I'm not panicking. I'm calm. I have the house in my name. I have $172,000 of documented investment. I have 23 recordings. I have photographs of his second family in Portland. I have proof of the $150,000 he stole from his father's estate. I have the medication he tried to use to poison me. I have everything. And tomorrow I'm going to use it. I pick up my phone and open my calendar. March 22nd, 10 o'clock in the morning, Richard Coleman's office. It's time. The call comes on Saturday afternoon, March 22nd. I'm sitting in Barbara's living room going over documents with Richard Coleman. Title deed, bank statements, receipts. The 3 USB drives lined up on the coffee table like soldiers ready for war. Barbara's landline rings. She answers, listens for a moment, then looks at me. Her face is uncertain. It's Jessica, she says quietly. She wants to talk to you. Richard raises an eyebrow. I consider hanging up. But curiosity and strategy wins. I take the phone. What do you want, Jessica? Her voice is shaking, crying. Ruth, please, I need to talk to you. We have nothing to discuss. I just found out about Portland. I pause. Found out Vanessa, the kids, the money. I didn't know Ruth. I swear to God I didn't know. I say nothing. I found bank statements this morning. Jessica continues, words rushing out. Chris has been transferring $3,200 a month for 3 years. I didn't know. He told me it was for his mother's nursing care. I believed him. Your cruelty to me had nothing to do with Vanessa. I say coldly. You wanted me gone long before Portland. Silence, then quietly. Yes. You wrote it in the group chat. You said it in recordings I have. You texted me to heat up my own food and not leave a mess. I know. So why are you calling me now? Because I'm scared. Her voice cracks. If he lied about this, what else did he lie about? If he tried to kill you, Ruth? She stops. What if I'm next? I glance at Richard. He's listening, taking notes. What do you want, Jessica? I want to help you. I have access to the bank accounts. I can show you where the money went. I can testify. Why would I trust you? Because I need to protect my children. If Chris goes to jail, I can't go with him. I need immunity. I need a deal. Ah, there it is. Not guilt, not redemption, survival. Come to Barbara's house tomorrow, I say. 10 o'clock in the morning. Bring the bank statements. We'll talk. I hang up before she can answer. Richard looks at me. That was Jessica. Yes? And she wants to cooperate. She wants to save herself. He nods slowly. That's actually better. Guilt makes people unreliable. Fear makes them useful. Jessica arrives the next morning at 10 sharp. She looks terrible. No makeup. Hair pulled back messily. Dark circles under her eyes. She's carrying a manila folder. Barbara lets her in but doesn't offer coffee. We sit in the living room, me on the couch, Richard beside me, Jessica across from us in the armchair. Barbara stands in the doorway, arms crossed. Jessica sets the folder on the coffee table. Her hands are shaking. These are the bank statements, she says. Joint account. I found them in Chris's office. He's been transferring money to an account in Portland every month since August 2022. Richard opens the folder, scans the pages. He nods. This is good, he says. This establishes a pattern. Jessica looks at me. Ruth, I need you to understand. I didn't know about Vanessa. I didn't know about the kids. Chris told me the money was for his mother's nursing care. I thought it was for you. It wasn't. I know that now. I lean forward. But you knew other things, didn't you, Jessica? She swallows. What do you mean? You knew you wanted me gone. You participated in the group chat. You mocked me. You sent me that text calling me Ruth and telling me not to leave a mess. Her eyes fill with tears. Yes. Why? She looks down at her hands. Because I resented you. Because this house was supposed to be ours, mine and Chris's and the kids. But you were always there. Always watching. Always judging. I felt like I could never measure up. Like you thought I wasn't good enough for your son. I sit back. So you decided to humiliate me until I left. Yes. Did you know about the insurance policy? She looks up confused. What insurance policy? I pull out a document from my folder. The Northwestern Mutual Policy. $400,000. Beneficiary Christopher David Anderson. Jessica's face goes white as she reads it. He took out a life insurance policy on you. On me, without my knowledge. 2 months before he gave me blood pressure medication I didn't need. Jesus Christ. Jessica's hands are shaking so badly the paper rattles. She sets it down. I didn't know about this. I swear, Ruth, I didn't know. I believe you, I say, and I do. Jessica is many things, cruel, resentful, petty, but she's not a murderer. Richard clears his throat. Mrs. Anderson, if you're willing to cooperate, we can offer you a deal. Jessica looks at him. What kind of deal? You provide full access to financial records. You testify about what Chris told you regarding the estate. The money transfers anything relevant. In exchange, Mrs. Ruth Anderson will not pursue legal action against you for elder abuse. Jessica turns to me. You'd let me go. With conditions, I say. You'll pay me $85,000 as compensation for 3 years of unpaid labor. $45,000 by December this year. The rest over time. $85,000. She sounds faint. You'll find it. Sell your car. Liquidate your retirement account. Borrow from family. You'll find it. I repeat firmly. And you'll sign a document relinquishing any claim you think you have to this house. Jessica is silent for a long moment. What about Ethan and Lily? She asks quietly. My voice softens. They're my grandchildren. I love them. This has nothing to do with them, but they will know the truth about their father, and you will not prevent them from seeing me. I won't, she whispers. I promise. Richard slides a document across the table. This is a cooperation agreement. Read it. Sign it if you agree. Jessica reads slowly. Her hands are still shaking. When she finishes, she picks up the pen and signs. She looks at me. I'm sorry, Ruth, for everything I did. I can't undo it. But I am sorry. I don't answer. She stands, leaves the folder on the table, and walks out. When the door closes, Barbara comes and sits beside me. Do you believe her? She asks. I look at the signed agreement on the table. It doesn't matter, I say. I have her signature. I have the bank records. And I have everything I need to make sure Christopher pays for what he's done. Richard packs up his briefcase. I'll file the paperwork Monday morning. We'll move fast. I nod. Good. After he leaves, I sit in the quiet living room, sunlight streaming through the windows. Jessica is not my ally. She never will be, but she's useful. And right now, useful is enough. Tomorrow, the real battle begins. Before I tell you about the biggest confrontation comment, one, if Chris deserved punishment, or two, if Ruth should have given him a chance, I want to know you're still here. And a gentle reminder, this story has some details retold in a more dramatic way for easier understanding. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can stop now. Richard Coleman's law office is on the 3rd floor downtown, 2 blocks from the courthouse. I arrive at 9:45 with Barbara. The conference room is ready, documents stacked neatly. Laptop open, 3 USB drives lined up on the polished table like soldiers ready for war. Jessica is already here, sitting at the far end. She doesn't look at me. Her hands are folded on the table, her face pale. At 10 o'clock, Chris walks in. He looks terrible. Unshaven, rumpled shirt, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. He sees me and stops in the doorway, his mouth opening slightly. Mom. I don't answer. I don't blink. I just watch him. Richard gestures to a chair across from me. Sit down, Mr. Anderson. Chris sits slowly. His hands shake as he places them on the table. He glances at Jessica. She stares at the wood grain, refusing to meet his eyes. Mr. Anderson. Richard begins, his voice calm and measured. We're here to discuss the property at 2847 Juris Lane, your father's estate, and certain actions you've taken over the past 3 years. You chose to come without an attorney. That was a mistake. Chris swallows hard. I didn't think... Let's start with the house. Richard slides a document across the table. This is the title deed, registered solely to Ruth Margaret Anderson. The mortgage is in her name, approved on her credit, $742, and her income. Social Security, $1,850 a month. Thomas's pension, $600 a month. You've paid $1,350 per month for 36 months. That's $48,600 total. That's rent, Mr. Anderson, not ownership. You have zero legal claim to this property. Chris stares at the deed, his face going white. But I helped, I thought. You didn't help, I say quietly. My voice is steady. I gave you $95,000 for the down payment. I paid $28,400 in repairs over 3 years. Roof, HVAC, appliances, paint, landscaping. My total investment is $172,000. Yours is $0. Chris's mouth opens and closes. No words come out. Richard opens his laptop. Now let's discuss how you treated your mother. He presses play. My voice fills the room. Then Chris's. October 22, 2022. Give it 6 months. She'll leave on her own. We just have to be patient. Chris's face drains of color. Richard plays another. December 24th, 2022. Jessica's voice clear and unmistakable. I don't want her in the family Christmas photo. Tell her she looks tired. Make an excuse. A third recording, March 19th, 2025, 5 days ago. Jessica. I just want her gone, Nicole. I hope she moves out soon. I can't take this anymore. Richard stops the playback. 23 recordings. Oregon is a one-party consent state. All legal, all admissible in court. Jessica speaks quietly, not looking at Chris. It's true. We said all of it. Chris slumps forward in his chair, elbows on the table, head in his hands. Richard spreads photographs across the table. Chris with a dark-haired woman on a porch. Chris with 2 children at a playground. Chris kicking a soccer ball with a young boy. Vanessa Carter, 36 years old, dental hygienist. 4721 Northeast Alameda Street, Portland, Oregon. Dylan, age 7. Zoe, age 4. Richard slides bank statements across. You've transferred $3,200 monthly since August 2022. We have clear documentation for at least 16 months, over $51,000 confirmed. Based on the transfer pattern, Ms. Carter's email correspondence, and ongoing financial analysis, the total is likely significantly higher. We're still tracing the full amount through forensic accounting. Jessica's voice is cold, detached. I provided those statements from our joint account. Chris looks at her, his eyes wide with betrayal. You gave them... You told me it was for your mother's nursing care, Jessica says, her voice flat. You lied to me for 3 years. Richard pulls out another document, a spreadsheet with highlighted rows. Your father's estate. Thomas Anderson. Died January 14th, 2022. Total assets, $120,000 in life insurance, $78,000 in pension funds. $198,000 total. You were named executor. You told your mother that after taxes, probate fees, and funeral expenses, only $48,000 remained. Where's the other $150,000, Mr. Anderson? Chris shifts in his seat. There were expenses, legal fees, the funeral cost more than... We'll subpoena every record, Richard says evenly. Bank accounts, credit cards, every transaction you made as executor. If you embezzled estate funds from your deceased father, that's a Class B felony in Oregon. 5 to 10 years. Chris's face is gray now. Richard places a small orange pill bottle on the table. The plastic clicks against the wood. Lisinopril, 20 milligrams. June 8th, 2023. You gave this to your mother. You told her Dr. Linda Harmon prescribed it for high blood pressure. Chris stares at the bottle like it might explode. Richard places a medical report next to it. Dr. Harmon's clinical notes, dated June 15th, 2023. Your mother's blood pressure 108/70. Normal. Healthy. The doctor never prescribed blood pressure medication. In fact, she was never contacted by you despite your claims. He looks directly at Chris. If your mother had taken this medication with her normal blood pressure, she could have suffered severe hypotension, dizziness, falls, loss of consciousness, stroke, cardiac arrest. You lied, I say, my voice cutting through the silence. You wanted me to take pills that could kill me. Richard places one final document on the table. The paper is crisp official. Life insurance policy, Northwestern Mutual. Policy number November, Mike 8847392. $400,000. Insured Ruth Margaret Anderson. Beneficiary Christopher David Anderson. Issue date March 15th, 2023. He pauses, letting the date sink in. You took out a $400,000 life insurance policy on your mother. 3 months later, June 8th, you gave her medication that could cause a fatal stroke. Richard leans forward. That's not coincidence, Mr. Anderson. That's premeditation. That's intent. Chris's voice is barely a whisper. I wasn't trying to. I didn't mean. You were, I say coldly. You wanted me dead. You wanted the insurance money. You wanted the house. You wanted everything. Chris puts his head in his hands. His shoulders shake. Richard closes the folders with a decisive snap. You have 2 options, Mr. Anderson. Option 1, we walk out of this office right now and go directly to the Marion County District Attorney. We file criminal charges, embezzlement of estate funds, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, elder abuse, attempted murder. You'll be arrested, arraigned, and you'll face trial. If convicted, you're looking at 15 to 20 years in Oregon State Penitentiary. The room is silent except for Chris's ragged breathing. Option 2, you come back here tomorrow, 10 a.m., with your attorney. We discuss settlement terms. You pay full restitution. You sign documents transferring all claims. You accept consequences. And if you comply with every single term, every payment, every deadline, every requirement, Mrs. Anderson will not press criminal charges. Richard stands. You have until 10 a.m. tomorrow to decide. If you don't show up, or if you show up without an attorney prepared to negotiate in good faith, we file criminal charges that afternoon. Do you understand? Chris nods weakly. You're dismissed, Richard says. Chris stands slowly like an old man. He looks at me one more time, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant... I turn my head away. He walks out. The door closes with a soft click. Jessica stands. Is there anything else you need from me today? Not today, Richard says. We'll be in touch. She leaves without looking back. The conference room is silent now. Just me, Barbara, and Richard. I I sit motionless, looking at the evidence scattered across the table. Photographs of Chris with children I never knew existed. Bank statements showing money stolen from my husband's estate. The pill bottle that could have killed me. The insurance policy that valued my life at $400,000. Barbara reaches over and takes my hand. Her grip is warm, steady. "You okay?" she asks softly. I nod. "I'm fine." Richard leans back in his chair. "Tomorrow we push for full restitution. The house stays 100% yours. He pays damages, both the embezzled estate funds and compensation for your labor. He signs a no-contact order. And if he doesn't agree to every single term, he'll agree," I say quietly. He has no choice. I pick up the photograph I brought with me, the one I've carried in my purse for the past week. Thomas and me. 1980. Our wedding day. We're standing on the church steps, my white dress blowing in the breeze, his arm around my waist. We're both smiling, young and hopeful, and certain the future would be kind. I trace the edge of the photograph with my thumb. "We got him, Thomas," I whisper. "We finally got him." Chris arrives at 9:55 with his attorney. I watch from the conference room window as they cross the parking lot. Chris walks slowly, head down. The man beside him is older, 50s, gray suit, expensive briefcase. Brad Morrison. Richard told me Chris hired him yesterday afternoon. They enter the building. 5 minutes later, Richard escorts them into the conference room. Brad Morrison extends his hand to Richard. "Brad Morrison representing Mr. Anderson." Richard shakes it. "Richard Coleman." Brad nods at me. I don't acknowledge him. They sit across from us. Chris won't look at me. His face is gray, unshaven. He looks like he hasn't slept. Brad opens his briefcase. "My client is here to negotiate a settlement. We dispute several of your claims." "There's nothing to dispute," Richard says calmly. "We have 23 audio recordings, 73 photographs, bank statements, medical records, insurance documents. Your client committed elder abuse, embezzlement, and attempted murder. We can present this evidence to the district attorney today, or we can settle. Your choice." Brad glances at Chris. Chris stares at the table. Brad clears his throat. "Let's discuss terms." Richard slides a document across. "Settlement agreement. 6 conditions." He ticks them off methodically. 1. Mr. Anderson signs a quitclaim deed. The house at 2847 Juris Lane becomes 100% Mrs. Ruth Anderson's property. No future claims, no disputes, complete transfer of ownership. 2. Mr. Anderson pays restitution of $235,000, $150,000 for embezzled estate funds from Thomas Anderson's life insurance and pension, $85,000 for unpaid labor over 3 years at documented market rates. Payment schedule $100,000 within 60 days, the remainder paid in 12 monthly installments of $11,250 each. Brad's eyebrows rise. $235,000. My client doesn't have that kind of cash. He'll liquidate assets, Richard says evenly. Retirement accounts, sell his car, borrow from relatives. We don't care how. But the money will be paid or criminal charges will be filed immediately. 3. No contact order. Mr. Anderson is permanently banned from the property at 2847 Juris Lane. No contact with Mrs. Anderson except through attorneys. Any violation triggers immediate criminal prosecution for stalking and harassment. 4. Mrs. Anderson retains full visitation rights with her grandchildren, Ethan and Lily. Mrs. Jessica Anderson retains primary custody. Separate settlement terms apply to Mrs. Jessica Anderson per her cooperation agreement filed yesterday. 5. Mr. Anderson must disclose his marital status to Vanessa Carter in Portland and establish formal child support arrangements for Dylan and Zoe Anderson through Oregon Family Court within 90 days. Failure to do so, we contact Oregon Department of Human Services and file a formal complaint. 6. Conditional immunity. If Mr. Anderson complies fully with all settlement terms, Mrs. Anderson will not press criminal charges. Any violation, missed payment, contact attempt, failure to file required documents, we file with the Marion County District Attorney immediately. Charges will include elder abuse, embezzlement, attempted murder, and fraud. Brad scans the document slowly, his expression tightening with each clause. This is extensive. Your client's crimes are extensive, Richard says flatly. Richard pulls out another paper and email printed on clean white paper. He slides it across the table. From Chris Anderson to vanessa.carter.pdx@gmail.com. Date February 18th, 2025. Subject soon. I know it's been hard. I promise by summer I'll have everything settled. The house will sell for at least $425,000. After paying off what I owe, I'll have $250,000 to start fresh. I'll file for divorce in June. By August, I can move to Portland full-time. Dylan starts second grade in September. I want to be there for his first day. I love you. I love our family. Just a few more months. See, I read it twice. My chest tightens. He planned to sell my house. The house in my name. The house Thomas and I bought together, without asking, without telling me. This email proves intent to defraud, Richard says quietly. He planned to sell property he didn't own, property held solely in Mrs. Anderson's name, and it establishes clear motive for the attempted murder. He needed Mrs. Anderson gone to execute this plan. He needed her dead. Brad looks at Chris. Did you write this? Chris nods. Brad closes his eyes, briefly exhales through his nose. He leans toward Chris, speaks in a low voice. I can't hear the words, but I see Chris shaking his head, his shoulders slumping forward. Finally, Chris speaks. His voice is hoarse, barely audible. I'll sign. Brad stiffens. Chris, I strongly advise against... I'll sign. Chris looks at me for the first time. His eyes are red-rimmed, bloodshot. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. I say nothing. I don't blink. I don't nod. I don't give him anything. Richard slides the settlement agreement across the table. Chris picks up the pen with shaking hands. He reads each page slowly, lips moving slightly. Then he signs his name at the bottom of page 6. His signature is shaky, barely legible. Richard witnesses, notarizes, stamps the document with the firm's seal. You have 60 days for the first payment, Richard says. $100,000, bank transfer or cashier's check made payable to Ruth Anderson. The quitclaim deed must be filed with Marion County within 14 days. Any missed payment, any violation of no contact terms, we go directly to the district attorney. Do you understand? Chris nods. Brad stands abruptly. We're done here. Chris stands slowly, like an old man. He looks at me one more time. I look away. They leave. The door closes with a soft click. I sit in silence, staring at the signed agreement on the table. Chris's signature is smudged at the end as if his hand had trembled. Barbara reaches over and takes my hand. It's over, she says softly. I shake my head. Not yet. Not until I have the money. Not until he's out of my house forever. Not until the deed is filed and recorded. Richard taps the document. He'll pay. He has no choice. If he doesn't, he goes to prison, and Brad Morrison knows it. That's why he didn't fight harder. I look at the numbers printed neatly on page 2. 150,000 plus 85,000 equals 235,000. $235,000. The house in my name. No contact order. Grandchildren protected. Jessica cooperating. Chris banished. 3 years. 3 years of cooking his meals, cleaning his house, caring for his children while he mocked me. 3 years of exclusion, cruelty, and visible suffering. 3 years of feeling erased in my own son's home. Was it worth it? I ask quietly. The fight? Barbara squeezes my hand hard. Yes. Richard nods firmly. You got everything you deserved. Justice, restitution, safety, dignity. I pick up the settlement agreement and hold it carefully as if it might disintegrate. Yes, I whisper. It was worth it. Outside, spring sunlight streams through the tall conference room window. Across the street, cherry blossoms are beginning to bloom soft pink against blue sky. I think of Thomas, of the house on Oak Street where we raised Chris, of 35 years together building a life. And I think of tomorrow, the first day of the rest of my life free. The text arrives May 20th, 55 days after the settlement. Deposit received $100,000 from Christopher D. Anderson. I stare at my phone. Barbara looks over my shoulder. He paid, she says. My phone rings immediately. Richard. First payment received and confirmed. The quitclaim deed was filed April 2nd with Marion County. The house at 2847 Juris Lane is now 100% yours. Congratulations, Ruth. I close my eyes. Thank you, Richard. After we hang up, I sit in silence at Barbara's kitchen table. $100,000. The house in my name. 3 years of fighting, documenting, surviving, validated in a single bank transfer. What now? Barbara asks softly. Now I go home. 3 days later, I drive to 2847 Jurist Lane. A U-Haul truck sits in the driveway. Chris and Jessica are loading boxes, furniture wrapped in blankets, suitcases stacked by the curb. Chris looks thin older. His face is unshaven, his shoulders hunched. Jessica's face is tired, drawn. Neither of them looks at the other. Ethan and Lily sit on the front steps. Lily's crying. Ethan has his arm around her. I don't get out of the car. Instead, I text Jessica, "Can I see the kids?" Her reply comes within seconds. Riverfront Park, 20 minutes. I wait on a bench by the river. The water is calm gray-green under the cloudy sky. Ducks paddle near the shore. Jessica's car pulls into the parking lot. Lily runs to me before the car even fully stops. She crashes into my arms, sobbing. Ethan follows slower, but his hug is just as tight. He's almost to my shoulder now. "Grandma, where did you go?" Lily sobs into my sweater. I kneel and hold her face gently in my hands. "I had to leave for a little while, sweetheart. But I'm back now, and I'm not going anywhere." Ethan looks at me seriously, his eyes searching mine. "Dad said you kicked us out of the house." "Ethan, this was never about you or Lily. That house was always mine. Your dad made bad choices and there were consequences. But this is between him and me, not you, never you." He nods slowly. "I heard some of the recordings, the ones I gave you. I know, you were very brave." Jessica stands a few feet away, arms crossed, exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. She looks like she hasn't slept in weeks. "Where are you going?" I ask her quietly. "My mother's place in Eugene. Temporary, until I can figure things out." "And Chris, Portland." Her voice is flat. She doesn't elaborate and I don't push. "The settlement," I say. "$45,000 by December." "I know. I'll pay it." She meets my eyes. "I signed the agreement. I'm keeping my word." I nod, then I pull 2 pieces of paper from my purse and hand them to the kids. Barbara's phone number is written neatly on each one. "Call me anytime you want, day or night. I love you both. That will never change." Lily hugs me again, her small arms wrapped tight around my neck. "Can we visit you?" "Every week if your mom says yes, I promise." Jessica nods. "Saturdays work." They drive away. I watch until the car disappears around the corner. Then I turn and look at the river, gray-green, moving slowly, patient, and endless. My family is broken, but my grandchildren are safe, and that's enough. June 1st, I unlock the door at 2847 Jurist Lane for the first time as its sole owner. The house is empty, silent. The smell of closed-up rooms hangs in the air, dust and old carpet and faint traces of cleaning supplies. I walk through slowly. The kitchen where I cooked for 3 years. The living room where they mocked me, excluded me, made me invisible. My bedroom on the first floor where I packed 2 suitcases at midnight and left everything behind. Upstairs, Ethan's room still has soccer posters taped to the walls. Lily's room has pink walls and a white dresser. On the floor near the closet sits a stuffed bear gray with button eyes, her favorite. I pick it up. I text Jessica. "Lily left her bear. I can mail it if she needs it. Keep it for when she visits." I sit on Lily's bed holding the bear in my lap. This house, mine now. I call Barbara. "I'm home." Over the next months, I hear about Chris in pieces, fragments of a life unraveling. June. He moves to Portland, lives with Vanessa and the kids at 4721 NE Alameda Street. July, Vanessa kicks him out. She found out he lied about being divorced, lied about his finances, lied about everything. August, Richard forwards a payment confirmation. $11,250. On time. Chris is living in a studio apartment near the airport working a warehouse job at Amazon. He lost his VP position in June. His employer found out about the settlement, the recordings, the police investigation that never quite closed. Jessica texts me mid-August. Filed for divorce. Final hearing in November. "Are you okay?" "Getting there. Kids ask about you constantly. Bring them Saturday." "Okay." August 30th. Ethan and Lily come over for the first time. I make spaghetti, Lily's favorite, with garlic bread and a salad. We eat in the kitchen where I once cooked for people who didn't want me there. Now it's just us, the three of us, and it feels right. After lunch, we go to the backyard. I've planted roses along the back fence, the same kind from Oak Street from the house Thomas and I shared for 35 years. Deep red, fragrant, resilient. Ethan helps me water them with the green hose. Lily picks dandelions and blows the seeds into the wind, laughing as they scatter. Can we come back next week? She asks, her face hopeful. Every week, sweetheart, as long as you want. When Jessica picks them up at 4, Lily hugs me for a long time. Ethan waves from the car window as they drive away. I sit in the backyard alone. The roses are small now, just budding. By next spring, they'll bloom full and bright and alive. Barbara brings iced tea and sits beside me on the patio chair Thomas built 20 years ago. You did it, she says quietly. Yes, I did. The house is mine. The money is coming on schedule every month. My grandchildren are safe, loved, protected. Chris is in Portland living in a studio apartment working for minimum wage. Broken. Alone. Jessica is starting over in Eugene, rebuilding her life one day at a time. And I am here. Free. I think of Thomas, of the life we built together, of the house on Oak Street where we raised Chris, where we celebrated birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesday nights. And I think of tomorrow and all the days after. Mine now, finally mine. Saturday morning, January 18th, 2026. I stand in my kitchen in my house, making pancakes for Ethan and Lily. The morning light streams through windows I chose not to cover with the heavy curtains Jessica preferred. The walls are soft yellow now, not the beige Chris insisted matched the furniture. The furniture is gone too. I bought a couch I actually like. This house is mine, every choice in it mine. Ethan and Lily arrive at 10. Ethan is 12 now, almost as tall as me. Lily is 9, still small, still quick to hug. We eat pancakes. Lily tells me about school. Ethan is quiet, thoughtful. After breakfast, we walk to Riverfront Park. It's mild for January, 50 degrees, pale winter sun. Ethan kicks his soccer ball. Lily collects smooth river stones. I sit on our bench and watch them. When they're tired, they sit beside me. Grandma, Ethan says, are you happy now? I look at him. A serious question from a serious boy. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Lily leans against my shoulder. Do you miss Dad? I pause. Honesty matters. I miss the son I thought I had, but the man he became... No, I don't miss him. Ethan nods slowly. Mom says he's in Portland and doesn't have much money. That's true. Is that because of what you did? I meet his eyes. It's because of what he did. He lied. He stole. He tried to hurt me. What's happening to him now is the result of his choices, not mine. Ethan considers this. I think he deserved it. I touch his shoulder. You don't have to choose sides. He's still your father. But you also don't have to excuse what he did. Can we come back next week? Lily asks. Every week, as long as you want. Evening, the kids are gone. I sit in my backyard with a cup of tea. The roses are dormant now, but come spring they'll bloom. I planted them last June, the same kind Thomas and I had at Oak Street. I think about the past 4 years. 2022, Thomas died. I moved in with Chris, the beginning of everything. 2023, I started recording, found the Portland emails, discovered the insurance policy, the medication that could have killed me. 2024, I hired Roy Mitchell, gathered evidence, waited. 2025, I left, I fought, I won. 2026, I'm free. My phone buzzes, a text from Richard Coleman. Payment received from C. Anderson, $11,250, on time. Chris is still paying, every month. He works part-time at an Amazon warehouse, now makes $17 an hour. He lives in a studio apartment in East Portland. Vanessa kicked him out in December, got a restraining order after he showed up drunk. He's alone, broken, barely surviving. I don't feel guilty. Jessica texted me last week. Her divorce was finalized in November. She got 50% of their joint assets custody of the kids and a fresh start. She's paying me $1,417 a month right on schedule. First payment of $45,000 came in December. She's moving forward. So am I. I look at my house, my garden, my life. For 3 years, I was silent. They thought silence meant I was weak. They were wrong. Silence meant I was listening, documenting, planning. I didn't beg for respect in a kitchen. I claimed it in a conference room with an attorney and evidence. They taught me that silence was survival. I taught them that silence was strategy. Barbara comes over Sunday morning with coffee and pastries from the bakery downtown. We sit in the backyard. The January sun is weak but warm enough. "How are the kids?" she asks. "Good. Ethan asked if I'm happy." "What did you say?" I said yes. Barbara smiles. "Are you—" I look around, my house, my garden, my choices. "Yes," I say, and I really am. I volunteer at Salem Hospital twice a week, now helping families in the ER. I know what it's like to be scared and confused in those hallways. I help them navigate. I joined a book club, made friends Carol Denise Margaret, women my age who've lived full lives and aren't afraid to laugh loudly. I see my grandchildren every Saturday. They stay overnight sometimes. Ethan's room still has his soccer posters. Lily's room still has her stuffed animals. This house isn't a museum of pain anymore. It's a home. My home. Every morning when I wake up, I remember I chose myself. Not revenge, not bitterness. Myself. My safety, my dignity, my future. They tried to erase me. I refused to disappear. And now, finally, I am exactly where I belong. Here, in my house, in my life, free. If you're reading my story, perhaps you see yourself in these pages. Maybe you're living in someone else's house, invisible in your own life. Maybe you're making excuses for cruelty, calling it family. Don't be like I was silent for 3 years, hoping kindness would change them. Here's what I learned. Family drama stories teach us that blood doesn't excuse abuse. Family revenge stories often show explosions of anger, but mine was different. I didn't seek revenge, I sought justice. There's a difference. Document everything. Stay calm. Build your case quietly. When you finally speak, speak with evidence, not just emotion. This family drama story could have ended differently. I could have stayed shrinking smaller each day until I disappeared entirely. But God gave me the strength to remember my worth. I wasn't put on this earth to be erased. Family revenge stories often end with everyone destroyed. Mine ended with me free my grandchildren safe and consequences delivered by the law, not by my hands. Some family revenge stories are about retaliation, but mine was about reclaiming what was stolen. My dignity, my home, my peace, my advice. Don't wait for respect. Claim it. Don't beg for dignity. Demand it. And if your family drama story turns dark, remember, silence can be strategy. Use it wisely. I chose myself. Finally. And that wasn't selfish, it was survival. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the very end. I'd love to hear your perspective. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. What would you do if you found yourself in a situation like this? Your viewpoint matters to me. If this narrative resonated with you emotionally, please consider subscribing to ensure you don't miss future content. A gentle reminder, some elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this particular content doesn't align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.